And in 3, 2.
What's up? It's Taniesha Westbrook, and welcome to the Taniesha Westbrook Show, where I break down the hottest stories when it comes to the state of Black businesses, right? Before I get into some things, I do have a guest here today. I would say special guest, and this is my husband, Greg Westbrook. What's up, Greg?
What's up? What's up? How you doing?
I'm feeling good. Welcome to the show. Again, you're not new to this stuff.
Yeah, I'm true to this.
Look, he's joined the Taniesha Westbrook Show before, so I know we're gonna have a good conversation. Before we get to that conversation, though, what I was telling you when we was off camera was, did y'all hear about this story about McDonald's? And you were like,
No, I hadn't heard about it.
okay, so this is the tea. The CEO of McDonald's recently did a video. I don't know who his social media team is, but they got him to do this video for this brand new burger.
Okay, I did hear about this.
Okay, you heard about it?
Yeah.
So he does the video, he has the burger, and he's supposed to take a bite, right? First of all, he's like, we have this new product. He don't even call it the burger. He like, we got a new product. And he takes a bite, but he takes the smallest freaking bite. He's like, this is so good. But I think his team thought that this was about to be like blow up and be a great video campaign, but it but it actually backfired and it blew up, but not for the right reasons. It blew up because it was he didn't look impressed with his own products. Like, people were like, we don't want to eat this because it don't look like you want to eat it. Like, it does not look like you eat this food. And once that happened, then I believe it was like Burger King who joined, and I don't know if it was Wendy's, but like some other companies, they started chiming in and having their CEOs do basically like burger reaction videos. So it's been like this viral trend, but it's making me think about just the state of business right now, and some of the things that can go viral. But also, like, as a founder or as the CEO of a company, you can really start out thinking like you have good intentions and things are gonna go well, and then it just backfires.
Well, to me, that's not surprising. I couldn't imagine the people in the C-suite at McDonald's eating the food anyway because they know all the drugs that they're putting in there. So, that's a conversation for a different day. But I think it's very important as a founder to be aware of how your perceived opinion on, especially your own products, matters. That's why a lot of people that just sell some stuff, like, I got some stuff for sale, they're not really gonna do well long term in business because they don't believe in them products.
Speaking of believing in products, that's a perfect segue to what we're talking about today.
Okay, cool.
So, Greg, like, what we talk about? He did not get the memo. What we're talking about today is how we built Shop Blackfest.
Okay.
So I want to dive into some of the behind the scenes of what it's taken to build a company like this as husband and wife. Um, People see the events, people see the crowds, they see, the infrastructure that we've started to build and like the community support, but they don't really know what's it been like behind the scenes for us. So, and the other thing is, like, I want to talk about what does it really take to start to build something from scratch as a founder. And, a lot of times I'm talking about what it's like to be a Black woman founder, but I feel like men, especially, well, specifically Black men, we're so used to y'all being, I guess, in power in a lot of ways that I would like to hear more about your experience as a founder, as a Black man in this day and stage.
For sure.
Um, So one of the biggest conversations that I want to talk about is, what that looks like as far as building a business. And then we're going to talk about later in the episode, we're going to talk about who we should be supporting with Black businesses.
Okay.
And we'll
All of
get there. No, we'll get there because the thing is, like, recently me and you hosted this small business and community roundtable where we had about a dozen or so Black entrepreneurs come together. We did a discussion around some of the things that are holding Black businesses back. And one of the things I like to say, we didn't have a argument. We had a spirited debate. But there was a spirited debate around if we should be supporting businesses, if we should be supporting everybody and just like meeting people where they at, or if we should be investing as a community, as a culture into the businesses and the business owners who are ready for growth, right? But before we get into all of that, let's talk about the beginning. So Shop Black, way back when, Shop Black Fest didn't start out as 4,000 businesses served, 13 cities activated, a 6-figure business, multi-awards. We've been doing our thing. It started out with just me and you winging it. So I want to hear from your perspective, like if you could think back to when we first started 7+ years ago, 8 years ago.
Because it was when it was in the studio, 2016. That's when we first started the idea.
Really?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, is he talking loud enough? Okay. I feel
You always do me like that. Like,
and you'd be like, low.
I got bass.
Okay.
You don't need to overpower it.
Okay. So in one of the other episodes, I talked about how my sister and I, we started as business owners together. But a lot of people don't know how me and you started kind of intermingling business. So from your perspective, what was your start?
It's actually kind of funny. So the year that we met, I had moved back to Nashville the year before that. So probably like 4 or 5 months before we met. When I moved back, I had already had like my hand in a couple of entrepreneurial endeavors where I was doing like sales and things of that nature. But I think from earlier than that, probably around my senior year in college, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so fast forward to right before we met, I had told my dad, like, I want to get in entrepreneurship. I want to find, I don't know if I mentioned, I think I just mentioned I want to get in entrepreneurship. My dad was like, you need to find you a girl that is in entrepreneurship. And it kind of went over my head. I didn't really think much about it. Fast forward to when we met, I found out that you had just started a business, probably maybe like a month before we met, something like that. Around the time that we met, you were planning your first fashion show. So that fashion show actually ended up being part of our one of our first dates. But yeah, it just happened that you were into entrepreneurship. What?
Dang, wait, you were at What If Studios too?
Yeah, I was there.
Golly, that's so random.
Yeah, we
graduated.
Well, we met in March, and then the event was like April 15th or something like that.
Yeah, that's crazy. So going back to like your individual journey, one of the things that I want to know is when you first started as an entrepreneur, what do you think the biggest thing that you have had to overcome when you think about where you are now as an entrepreneur, as a Black man?
I think it was definitely probably mindset around what was possible. We could talk about this a little bit later, but you mentioned like men versus women as far as being founders or Black founders. I think from my perspective, and I've talked to other male entrepreneurs about this as well, is like we have the double-sided piece of like we have to provide. So the types of businesses that men start versus women start a lot of times is different because women don't always have that. They have to provide. It can be like something on the side. Now that's not everybody. Like there's plenty of women that are single that, do this for a way to provide. For the most part, men are in that position. And so the types of businesses, of course, are different. But go back to your question again.
Oh, I was saying, what do you think is the biggest thing that you've had to overcome?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, for sure it's mindset, like, of what is possible. So, like, yes, you could start a business, but what type of business is it? Is it going to be able to sustain your lifestyle? Is it going to be able to outlive you, be able to be sold at one point? Like, all of those things were not fathomable to me when I first started.
So what do you think you were thinking about when you first started? Like, for
was
me, it was a creative outlet, but what was it for you?
Um, I think for sure a creative outlet, but more so a way for me to use my skills in a way that I could actually benefit from in a larger way than, like, you're working a job, you're like, I'm just helping them get this one piece of something going. And going back, that's why entrepreneurship's not for everybody. But it's like, for me, I was like, I have more skills than just this. Like, I have more to offer than just this.
Yeah.
So how can I put all of those things to use, at one time? And really, entrepreneurship is like the best way to do that, where you're able to put a lot of different hats on and do a lot of different things. Now, through that, I learned a lot of things that I don't like to do or I'm not very good at. But there were a lot of things that I just wanted to, like, well, I want to do this.
Yeah, it was a way to experiment in a way, to flex different muscles,
Hmm.
to be creative. And what you made me think about when you were just talking was our shared disdain for corporate America. So right now, what's happening? There are a lot of there are a lot of people that are getting laid off from work. Um, People are getting fired from jobs, all of those things. But then on the flip side of that, there are a lot of people who are still working a 9 to 5.
Hmm.
And when I think about when I first started, I was doing both. The one thing that stood out to me about, like, when you were just talking was being in corporate America, especially if you're Black, is one of the most draining experiences that you can have. And there's no shade, no tea to corporate America, because on one side with corporate America, you're learning structure. You're learning, like, if you're working for a big company, there are different departments. So you're learning how interdepartments work. I worked in finance, so I understood, budgets and financial statements. So you're learning a lot there. But what people don't talk about is when you are Black and you're in a predominantly white space, there are so many things that subconsciously fuck with you
Hmm.
from being the one and the only.
Yeah.
For me, it was I felt like I was the token. So people expected me to speak for all Black people, like we just one big.
This thing happened. What do you think about it?
Right. Another thing is when George Floyd got murdered, I had to go into the office the very next day, and I remember being on the elevator crying. I remember trying to make sure I looked okay when I got off the elevator to walk into the office. And I remember nobody even bringing it up, wanting to talk about it. It was basically like I had to pretend like everything was okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there are all these instances where you don't feel like you are seen.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to entrepreneurship, it becomes a way for you to be seen, not just for the success of the business, but for me, going back to how people just sell stuff, we don't just sell stuff. Like, we actually care about, the work that we do.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your perspective on that?
I think that, um, going back again to the type of businesses that people start, like, I really wanted to start a business around something Black. So my experience is a little bit different from yours, where I grew up as the token kid. So that was my upbringing. I was a token for as long as I could remember, from the time I was 2, 3 years old until I graduated high school. Like, I was, in most situations, the only Black person. So having to speak for, what it is around how this affects Black people. Like, people would ask me questions like that on a regular basis, or um, just being in a situation like that. But I had the opportunity to go to HBCU, where I was completely inundated in Black culture, from a high level perspective. it was really where I felt like I could just be myself. Whereas a lot of times when you're a minority, you're like putting on a face for
Cause you
the
don't want to make us look bad.
right. I mean, it's less about that, but it's more like I have to just put on this face of like I'm being a version of myself so that I'm palatable to you guys. You know what I mean? Like if I was just my unadulterated self around mixed company, a lot of times it might rub them the wrong way or they might not understand. Now, fast forward, pop culture, hip hop culture is much more popular now, so it's probably a little bit different when it comes to that. But back then, 90s and 2000s, like it was like it was like a completely separate uh culture. I mean, so like a lot of like people that I went to high school with, they didn't know who like these rappers I was listening to. They had never heard of them. You know what I mean? Where nowadays, like people know who the top people are. But
Her center is all up at the. Let me tell you something. I saw a post the other day, and it was somebody who like this and not like this, and the caption said, "Nah, he just blah blah blah." I said, "Not he just." I know that's a black. Ain't that a black colloquialism? Those how we speak. Now this is captions. You know, like it's just a lot. But okay, so let's switch gears because okay, so this is our foundation. We both had this shared respect for uh entrepreneurship and we were able to explore. But let's talk about some of the things that we've had to overcome when it comes to building the business. So there are a couple things that come in my mind and I'm gonna just throw them out there and you could just grab whatever.
sure.
So when I'm thinking about when we first started out, we had the cushion and the support of 9-to-5 jobs. But eventually that that well ran dry. So we were just out there on our own for a long time trying to figure out how to build a business and pay ourselves and be a married couple.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other thing I'm thinking about is things like our roles, right? How are we able to work together and do it in a way where we're not trying to kill each other every day, right?
Yeah.
And how do we actually grow? Like, if you think about, I was just looking at Shop Black Fest, like our social media stats this week, and it was up to like 450,000 people that we have reached on Facebook alone in the last 28 days. Right? So if you think about it's just me and you, a couple of contractors, a couple of volunteers, and we're able to grow this thing, it's something to be proud of. So where are your thoughts when it comes to like when you think back to specifically because the last episode was about money? What are your thoughts around how you first started when you thought about money and our dynamic as a married couple and building this business and where you are now?
Yeah. So there are so many points that I could think of where there was like a huge mindset shift when it came to like how to operate the business. But for me, the first time that I realized like, oh, we could make some money doing this. So the pandemic kind of gave us like a pause where we could like restart. But like one of the things people don't know, our first Juneteenth event we did in 2020, it was like right after outside opened back up. And we were like, we want to do a Juneteenth event. It was like maybe like June 9th. We had like 60 vendors sign up before the 19th.
Dang, I don't remember that. So that was that last minute?
It was so last minute. I'm talking about we was having like 10, 15 people a day signing up. Now, that wasn't really the big light bulb of like, oh, we need this because I think Juneteenth had just become a federal holiday maybe the year before, or maybe it was that year. So it was like people were aware of it and they were like, oh, this is a big deal. So we got to support it. And it's still kind of like that. Like around Juneteenth, in Black History Month, there is a more of a focus around people supporting Black-owned businesses, or just supporting Black endeavors in general. But yeah, the first time I realized in 2021, we basically started going out. Well, 2020, we started going outside because of the pandemic. 2021, we announced that we were doing 5 cities at first because we hadn't added Atlanta. And we literally ran a sale. Like the price was going from like, I think $75 per booth to like $100. And it was like, we're going to stop it on this date. We made like $12,000 in like 4 days right before the deadline. And I was like, how is this possible? You know what I mean? Like, I was like, like, how is this a thing? So then fast forward that year, 2021 was actually one of our best years. That was our first year doing 6 figures. And there wasn't a lot of competition. We were one of the only people in the marketplace, and we were able to travel to different markets and do this. So I was literally like, this is going to be amazing. So I think he was asking, how did we get to, I lost my train of thought. You were asking, how do we get to?
Well, it was more so about you. Where I wanted to go with this was talking about some of the things that we have had to overcome individually as a couple to build the business. And like when you first started, just like you said, you had to open up your mind about like this could be something that we could build a lifestyle off of. But I'm just thinking about some of the challenges that we had.
Mm-hmm.
And if you would like to share, one of your biggest challenges when it came to like something you literally had to overcome, especially being like you mentioned it before, you're a provider, but also you're trying to chase your dream, and there was some friction there.
Yeah. I am a very optimistic person. So I think just overcoming the fact that you got to be more realistic about certain things.
What does that mean?
So, I mean, we talked about this before, but we went from 6 cities the first year to trying to do 30 cities the second year. So just overcoming that obstacle of like having to cancel events, and we had to like fire staff that year and like start over in a lot of ways. That was 2022.
It was depressing.
And then, overcome like having a bad taste in your mouth from some of our customers, and, firing some of our customers and dealing with that negative energy and all of the things that came with that. That was like a big thing to overcome. And I think 2023 is when we started. 2022, the end of the year, we started getting like counseling, and we actually revamped everything in 2023. That was the start of where we are now.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So just to give context, okay, yeah, this is gonna be a little longer than 25 minutes. We're gonna go like 4:15. Just to give context, when we first started, we experienced some success. We were making money, like he said, but then we started scaling up to, we were like, we're gonna do 6 cities, and then we got ambitious. We're gonna do 30 cities, and then we started having to go through all these things that if you remember my last episode, we were talking about how businesses grow too fast and they end up having to shut down. So for us, luckily, we came across someone who was very well versed in businesses, who helped us restructure our business. And basically, we started from scratch. We took what we knew about the event business, because that was the business that we were in. We were hosting events, and we transitioned into something that when you think about corporate terms, they'll say a sustainable business model. So we went from a business that was like volatile, meaning we didn't know, like one event we could do well, but another event we could do trash.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know about slow months. We didn't know that, like he mentioned, we made $12,000, but how much did it cost to run the event?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It took $11,000 to run it. So now what we gonna do with this $1,000 that we got? And we got rent that's $1,500.
You gotta put some respect on it. We at least was keeping 5.
Okay, we were at least keeping 5.
No.
But the point that I'm making is that there were things that we really had to figure out the pieces in order to build. And so, yeah, that's just to give some context around where we started, and then what I call like the transformational point where we restructured our business, and now we're in this new space where I would say we're not an events business, right? We host events. It's a way for us to build our brand, connect with people, generate, revenue in some ways. But for me, I'm thinking in terms of like, how do we build a Black business ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because the last thing I want to talk about is like just that debate around who we should be supporting. But before we get there, I want to talk about roles.
Okay.
So, as a founder, when you're a solopreneur, you're wearing a lot of hats, which is difficult. However, you don't have to answer to anyone but yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When you are running a business with someone else, so it could be, it could be 2 of y'all, 3 of y'all, 5 of y'all. In this case, it was Greg and myself. You have to answer to yourself and other people, and you have to find a way to work together. So I'm going to ask you this. What do you think was the hardest thing for you about figuring out your role and your place as a co-founder?
So earlier I was talking about like I have these skills that I want to be able to utilize that a lot of times in corporate America you don't get the opportunity to. So what I was doing for a long time in our business was focusing on the things that I was good at. And I was doing them at a high level. So from a sales perspective, that's my bread and butter. So I was the one making the money, right? But then like the back end, the automation, and then some of the other pieces of the actual events and our business in general started to falter. So a lot of people don't know, like you still have your other business, Cool Girls Create. And in 2021, I was doing a lot of Shop Like This by myself. Like you weren't really in the weeds with me, like yet, as far as like planning and doing the things. You were running your own thing. And I feel like you got a contract then, or you weren't working. Oh, we had marketing clients. We had like a separate other business.
I had the clothing business, and we had the festival.
So, really Shop Like Fest grew to a point where it was like, okay, we need to focus on this because we're making too much money here. We need to figure out how to make this a sustainable thing. And really it was just, for me, like my biggest issue was I only wanted to focus on the things that I wanted to do. And so
So what does that look like in real life? Because what I'm trying to do is get into some things, and I feel like,
I mean,
what was it?
What it looks like is I'm doing most of the front end stuff. So like creating the funnels, doing the sales, getting the people in the door, getting the money in the door. And I was doing like logistics planning for the event.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, the finances, the budgets, the intangible things in business, the marketing to make sure it was consistent, the brand messaging, how
The infrastructure,
our flyers look, like all of the infrastructure, right? The business infrastructure. It wasn't terrible, but it just wasn't where we needed to be in order to grow. So I think for me, it was just realizing that we needed more. So I was like, I can't remember how the conversation came to you. I was like, I need help. Like we doing all this, and I know you got your own thing going, but you're gonna have to pause for a while because we got this thing over here that's blowing up, and I don't exactly know how to sustain it. Like we're making the money, but we're losing the money just
the money's going out.
I mean, we're spending a lot of money on expenses and things that, looking back, we didn't really need. Like early on, before we had like a business vehicle, we were like renting cars every time we went somewhere. We were staying in hotels. We were we weren't balling, but we were not being strategic about how we were spending the money that we were making. So yeah, that was the biggest thing as far as like the roles. You mentioned like what does it look like to just do some of the stuff that you like to do. So yeah, if you do the things that you like to do, there can be a lot of things that can fall by the wayside. And the thing about businesses is not supposed to be done alone. Like you really, if you're making any kind of money, you shouldn't be in business by yourself. Like you need some type of help, whether that's AI, automation, something like that, or like an assistant or a CPA or, somebody that does some of the intangible things that you're not able to do.
Yeah, they say focus on your strengths and hire for your weaknesses. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, well, I would say just in people in general,
I focused on my strengths and I left my weaknesses to.
they was just out there.
I didn't hire for them for sure.
I was gonna say, I think because I'm someone who's really focused on like self-development, I would try to improve my weaknesses, which to me is wasted time. So that's why it's important as an entrepreneur where you figure out, like they tell you to do all these things like track where you're spending your time and figure out, what you're good at. But a lot of times we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. But Oh, okay. But those things have helped me figure out what my strengths are. So my strengths are strategic planning, building infrastructure, figuring out automation and all the different pieces of the business. I say businesses have buckets, right? So you have the operational bucket, you have the financial bucket, you have the marketing bucket, you have the sales bucket, and all of these buckets the water needs to flow into each other so that you can have a business that actually pays you. And when you're a solopreneur, you're not thinking about that. You're trying to hold all the buckets together. And as a couple, I think we were fighting over buckets. Really. I think it was just, a tug and pull. But the other thing, so from my perspective, when it came to the roles, I think my biggest challenge was figuring out how to get things done without it being my way of getting things done.
That's big.
And I'm still working on that. So I would say those were some of the things that came up with us trying to build this festival. But to close us out, because we can go on and on about what it took to build Shop Blackfest, and I'm sure I'll have you on other episodes. But what I wanted to get your thoughts on was going back to the conversation we had with in our Black business community roundtable. So it was a debate, y'all. So we sitting in there and I'm asking them questions. I'm asking these founders different questions about what are the problems that Black businesses are struggling with? And it became this big debate around if we should be focusing on the people that need the help. And when we talking about these people, we talking about people who maybe you 50 and you've been in business for 30 years, but you don't understand technology. Or maybe you started your business, you don't have a business degree. Hell, you might not have any degree, and you just trying to figure out how to make extra money, right? You're not interested in taking courses and classes and all that. You're in hustle mode. Or maybe you have a degree, but you still like the money is coming in, but you can't figure out how to keep it, right? And then the other side of that is businesses who are doing well. Maybe they're making 6 figures, maybe they're making 7 figures, but they still need some help from our community. So my question to you is, where do you think we land? Should we be focusing on the businesses who are doing well, or should we be focusing on supporting the businesses and the entrepreneurs who need a little bit more hand holding?
So I think it's a double-edged sword. Shop Black Fest is like primarily a business to business ecosystem. Like we have our customers, but we don't get any money from them. We might get like data when they come to the events, but we don't get any actual return on investment from them. And I've always liked the B2B space because when you're talking to business owners, you feel like they know
They
what's
can
going on.
relate.
Yeah, they can relate, and it builds like a cool community. So one of the things that I quickly noticed within our business ecosystem is that people who are in hustle mode, they cause, first of all, they cause the most problems. From a logistics perspective, they have like the most questions and things like that because they're not like
They're not reading the email.
they're not reading the emails. They're not worried about the important details. They just want to know where I need to set up, what I need to bring, and catch you later. Hopefully, I make some money. And
if I don't, it's your fault.
yeah, and realistically, and I said this during the Black Business Roundtable discussion, like helping those businesses is kind of pointless because they're going to phase out anyway. And so I think that there has to be a level of, we call it skin in the game from the business owners, which is why we have our price point where we have it, right? Like I don't want to work with people who are paying $25 for a vendor booth because you're not taking your business seriously enough for me. Now, does that make me a bad person? Maybe. But in business, the goal is to make money. I had a person on social media like earlier this year that commented and was like, I was going to sign up, but y'all's prices are ridiculous. So I sent a nice response back and I was like, well, our prices are this because we focus on this type of business. She's like, well, y'all ain't trying to help everybody.
You're right.
And I hit block, whatever. But in my mind, yes, I'm not trying to help everybody because you can't. You can, take a horse to water. You can't force it to drink. And the amount of energy that it takes to focus on those types of businesses when there's not going to be any fruit is really just pointless to me. So yes, I think there does need to be a line of, as a business owner, in order to get help, you have to want it. And one of our mentors used to actually say something funny, like you have to hit rock bottom before you're actually going to.
Why you trying to take my story?
I'm saying until you're actually going to listen to what has to be, listen to what steps it's going to take to get to where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
And there might be, opportunities out there for the hustle mode people. And, I hope that you get there. I hope that something in your journey sparks you to want to take your business more seriously. But until you get there, stay over there, in my opinion.
Oh.
But it's tough, right? Because we were there before.
Right. Well,
and people didn't take us seriously until we took that step into this. So it's like, I don't know. It's what do they say? Business is not about emotions. It's about making money. And so if that's what you're interested in, these are the steps you got to take. There's not really a workaround.
yeah, my take on this, and we'll wrap this up, but my take on this is I'm a little bit, okay, so yes, business is about making money, right? But what I've come to understand is that you have to have a certain level of, I'm going to figure this shit outness that you can't have if you're just focused on making money. Like making money cannot be your end all be all.
No.
Because entrepreneurship is a transformation journey, right? Like if the way it should work is when you should not start the way that you finish.
Right.
Right. There's so many things that happen that transform you as an entrepreneur, going back to your mindset and how you approach everything. So what I find is, like, going back to that mentor story, what used to happen, to be candid, would be we would go through these cash flow gaps where we have a slow season and then we're trying to figure out how to plug the hole. So I would go to my mentor like, hey, do you have a contract or something so we can to smooth us over so we can pay these bills?
Mm-hmm.
And check wrote, right? Or we're like, we gotta pay our staff, but we ran out of money. And that's something that people don't talk about. How many times businesses run out of money behind the scenes, and Black people, we get shunned for it, but it happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And our white counterparts, they have resources to make sure that they are supported with that. But going back to hitting rock bottom, I'm going somewhere with this story. So we would go to the mentor, say, hey, we ran out of money. They will provide the money. Well, it's only so many times somebody's going to bail you out before you have to start figuring out how to bail yourself out.
Right.
And the way to do that as an entrepreneur is to get to a place where you do not give a flying fudge cake about what other people think, and you're able to be transparent about where you are in your business. You have to be able to accept the help.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to a lot of these people that are in hustle mode, people in hustle mode, the only help they want to see is give me money and put it in my pie. They don't want to do the work that it takes to transition from hustle mode. And I think for us, we had to hit that rock bottom. Like nobody's going to bail you out. So are you going to become the person that you need to become to have a successful business, or are you just going to keep asking people to help you?
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting point. Like there are not like of course there are people that are like silver spoon or you had like an opportunity or your dad passed down your business or you grew up in business, like those people are anomalies. But for the average person, like the wealthiest people in history that started businesses, they had to go through a transformative journey of becoming a better version of themselves. And so you'll rarely find like a successful business owner that built their business from scratch that's like not good at basic business things. You know what I mean? Like they had to get better at those things. They had to overcome different things and they're constantly upskilling, building capacity. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like that's the recipe.
The
There's no way around it.
That's the perfect stopping point for this episode is capacity. So when you think about how Greg and I built Shop Black Fest, we expanded our capacity. We expand our capacity every year where we're focused on developing as leaders. What does it look like to lead myself and manage myself? What does it look like to lead and manage other people? We're developing our strategic vision. We're developing how to execute better, how to take in information, how to analyze things, how to build relationships. Like all of these things is a constant way of evolving. And so when you think about building something, that's where it starts and that's where it ends.
Mhm.
What is your capacity? And are you willing to invest everything that you got to make sure that your capacity is where it needs to be in order to build?
And capacity in this context is just your skills, like what you know how to do.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for joining me on the Taniesha Westbrook Show. This conversation was a great one around entrepreneurship, and I am excited to continue the conversation in the next episode. Taniesha Westbrook and Greg Westbrook signing out. Millennial peace sign. I don't know. I'm gonna stop doing this, but it's like,
Oh, you're not.
no,
Forever.
forever. It's a wrap.